I'm still trying to figure out why. I'm not sure if it's unhealthy, damaged parents and just the culture that was before us and how that all differs from like somewhere like Japan. It just feels like there's a massive amount of pushback.
Well, I think some of it's nihilism. Nothing matters. None of this matters. And I can't waste my time with verbiage. I'm just going to say the easy thing. And I think that's a lot of parenting. It's that you get presented with an option that is easy, and maybe it works, but it's easy and doesn't require a lot of time or effort. And there's the really hard thing, and it's slow. But boy, the fruits of that are going to be so much more healthy and beautiful than the other thing. And it's not to say the other thing doesn't work, but it's, do you want to come from a higher place or do you want to do what's easy? And anyone who has kids knows it's not easy.
Right.
So you signed up for a really big challenge. And I think it's up to us parents to do the most that we can with what we have. And I think most of us just don't demand enough out of ourselves. We're like, I'm tired. That's hard. You don't know my kid. They're especially difficult. I mean, everyone's saying the same thing, but I think just change and stick with it. It might not be an overnight miracle, but your internal dialogue as an adult is what your parents were saying out loud to you while they were raising you. So there's this question when you have this sabotaging thought, ask, is that mom or dad? And I bet you can hone in onto which parent it was. So I think it's really important to be intentional with your language with them so that they can be intentional with their language to themselves as an adult.
Well, because ultimately, isn't that, again, goes back to the stories we tell ourselves. So if what we're telling ourselves is garbage, we're going to feel like garbage. And that goes back to what I'm curious about. Is it the damage done from the parents that doesn't allow us to want to progress? It just feels like this generation, our generation and the one right before us, ours is opening up to this different level of healing, this changing things like verbiage so that you have better self-talk. But then you start to look around and wonder, and I start to wonder, and this goes back to kind of Abigail's book, is why are we the ones that are so conscious and yet we are the ones that have the sickest children? From a mental health perspective.
I mean, that's a really great question. It's almost like we're bombarded with too much information. So if you look at the greatest generation, which I guess there's probably a few of them left.
Yep.
They'd be probably
That was that conversation we were having
in
again.
their like 100, whatever.
Yeah.
They didn't have aisles and aisles of self-help books and endless YouTube videos and all of these people dumping this is the way to parent. It was a lot more intuitive and instinctive. And I think the disconnect is we are relying too much on our intellect and not enough on our knowing. So there's so much information that's passed on into your body, into DNA, and we kind of know that. It sounds crazy, but they did this experiment with mice where they intentionally bred blind mice. And then they had the blind mice mating with the blind mice. So you would expect that those mice would be blind in perpetuity because they have now outbred that genetic ability to see. I think it was 2 or 3 generations in, vision came back.
Oh,
Right. So we still don't really understand the human genome and how our traits are passed along, but there is information that's encoded and passed along. So I think your parental instincts are there for a reason. And so much of us have this really deep feeling of not being adequate enough or not capable that when that arises, we quickly push it to the side and we say, I'm wrong. This person that wrote a best-selling book is right. And I'm going to go against my parental instincts and do this intellectual thing when so much of any relationship is feeling and it's embodying that thing. So if you're overriding all of those thousands of years of evolution, I think you're doing a disservice. So it's to, again, take the information that you find helpful, that resonates, that feels right for you and your family, but not to deny that inner knowingness that is there and has always been there.
I think that's interesting. It's always been there. The knowing has always been there.
I mean, just from an evolutionary standpoint, your kids are supposed to survive. So the species can survive. So that information is there. Now, surviving is different than thriving. We know that. But again, I think so much of it boils down to over-intellectualizing everything. So if you're trying to psychoanalyze your kid, which is a lot of these gentle parents, let me make you feel safe. Do you need this stuffy or do you need this stuffy? Do you want to wear this shirt? Where I saw this parenting advice that I thought was so wacky. She was saying, give your kid all of these choices. if I'm going onto an airplane, I don't want the pilot asking me anything. You know, I can pick my seat and I can pick my drink. Right. That's what I want. So yes, give them choice, but age appropriate choices and maybe two things. Right. They are going to be so overwhelmed. And I think a lot of us are doing that with our kids. And you do it from a place of love, but you have to be able to see how it's affecting them in real time and then pivot quickly. And that's parenting too, is being able to pivot on a dime. Is this working? Is this not working?